Hey guys, going to do a quick unboxing and review of the Benchmade Freek. I'm also going to do a little comparison between that and the Benchmade Adamas. You can go over some specs of both knives and then basically what I'm using it for. Full disclaimer here though, I was issued this knife. However, I did purchase the Adamas with my own money. But gonna go ahead and just start getting into it here. Opening up the box, you can see it comes in a nice little pouch for it to basically be protected. It comes with the instructions. But go ahead and taking a look at the knife itself. We're gonna open up the pouch. I was pretty excited to get this issued. It's a nice little piece of gear. Current price on it right now, as of today, is $225. So that can go into consideration of if it meets your budget. I'm just going to speak to it because I really have no bias towards it. I'll just speak to what I've experienced with it. I've taken it out to the woods now, out into the field, and I've used it for various tasks. So I'm going to give you guys kind of what I've experienced and what kind of just the impression of what I got from the knife. Looking at aesthetically, it's a pleasant looking knife. Definitely enjoy the way it looks. I will say first things first, coming out of the box and opening it up, the rivet there, the hinge is very stiff. It took quite a while to get that a little bit smoother. Not only did I try some different types of oils just to see if I could lubricate a little bit better, I also used some dry lubrication as well, some different powders and graphite and whatnot. Now, fitting in the hand, honestly, I think it's very comfortable. Like I said, there's between this and the Adamas, that I believe they're a little bit bigger knives for the typical user. They're definitely not small knives, but they're also not extremely large either. I find them very comfortable, both knives very comfortable to work with. However, just giving it a once over, this is the very first time I was looking at the box here. Here's a little bit better of a view, change the lighting up a little bit. But just once again, aesthetically looking at the knife, it is very pleasing. It's got the G10 scales, and something that I've always found that a lot of times people always talk about G10 scales and whatnot. Basically what G10 scales are glass fiber, composite, and epoxy, and basically it's compressed for a long period of time under high pressure and then cured under high heat. Makes it pretty comfortable, pretty durable as well. I haven't had any issues with G10 scales, but just a little tidbit of information for you. Now, looking at the lock here, you have the axis lock. I found it to be really reliable on both knives. I've had the Adamas for about 1.5 years and it's held up really well. Definitely feel safe with it. There's other types of locking mechanisms out there, which one of the big ones is going to be the you've got frame locks, and then another one is the linear lock that you find on most knives. Has failed me before. A lot of times those can not lock out all the way, or just over a period of time they just become kind of weak, and they'll start slipping, and that can be really become a real problem, especially if you're out in the woods or you're in a situation where you need that knife. You cut yourself, it's just gonna make the day worse. Now you have to treat a medical injury or potentially have more issues than what you need, especially when you're trying to get something done and using your knife. That's going to be a problem. Now, looking at the rest of the blade, you can see it is a drop point blade. Definitely much thinner of a blade, but it's made out of M4 steel. M4 steel, high carbon. It's a premium steel. It's really good for edge retention, toughness, and as well as basically being able to be sharpened fairly well. So some of the big things I look for when it comes to a knife is edge retention, toughness, like how much or how well it can resist chips. Anything that you put it through is going to be able to hold up. Corrosion resistance. So I work out in the woods quite a bit, around water, just being in different environments. There's a lot of times they have a lot of elements that get onto the blade. Just making sure that it can resist rust as much as possible. And like I stated earlier, just that ease of sharpening, it's huge. Like you can have a really cool blade, something that you love, but then it takes forever to sharpen. And my main focus, especially for what I use it for, is if I'm out in the woods or I'm doing a part of an operation or something like that, I want to be sure that I can sharpen my knife fairly quick. And so far this has been holding up pretty well. But to be honest, I haven't really even sharpened it. I've just stropped it. Just had a leather strop, worked it back and forth, and it's been holding up well. Now, as you can see here, I have the Adamas. It is a much thicker knife. You can feel it's pretty robust once you get it in your hand. Not only is the handle fairly thick, but the blade itself is fairly thick. The blade thickness of the Adamas is around 4.06 millimeters. So it's fairly thick. And then you can go ahead and compare that to the Freek, which is 2.896 millimeters. So there's a little bit of a difference there. And once again, it comes down to your uses. So with the Adamas, it's going to be a thicker blade, so maybe your cutting tasks aren't going to be as fine as opposed to the Freek, which is going to be a little bit more suited to those fine tasks. But honestly, a sharpened good blade should be able to handle most of your tasks that you need. I'll take any knife as opposed to no knife. Okay, and just getting another side-by-side comparison here, just getting an overall look at the both of them together. We're going to see that there is a little bit of size difference there. Just to give you guys some specs on the difference, the Freek is coming in at a total length of 8.46 inches. The blade length of the Freek is coming in at 3.6 inches with a weight of 4.30 ounces. Now flipping over to the Adamas, we're looking at a total length of 8.70 inches, a blade length, of 3.82 inches, and then weight is coming in at 7.68 ounces. So it is a heftier knife, and like I said earlier, it kind of comes down to the individual. I wouldn't say I have extremely large hands, but for me, for my day-to-day use, it fits perfect in my hand. I have, what do we use knives for? 99% of the time it's like cutting open Amazon boxes. Like that's a go-to. Like we think it's going to be this, badass knife that's going to be able to cut through a bunch of stuff, but honestly you're using it for daily tasks. Now, part of my job is going out into the woods and using it for survival tasks, such as making things like feather sticks, processing game, cutting cordage, just a bunch of different other things. But like I said, it is much more comfortable in hand. Speaking of hand, I've actually measured my hand here to kind of give you guys an idea. I always see these reviews and I'm like, all right, is that going to fit my hand? Is that going to be a good purchase for me? Spending all this money, we're looking at $225, $235 for these knives, and is this gonna fit well? But that's probably going to the store, trying it out, seeing what fits well. The width of my hand is a little over 3.5 inches, and then from the palm of my hand to the tip of my middle finger, I'm sitting around a little over 7.5 inches. So if that gives you guys any sort of idea, that maybe help assist with if you can't get hands-on with it, if this is something you're just going to order online, is that something that's going to work for me? And basically here, just going ahead and measuring it again. I've given you guys the numbers already, the specs of the length of the knives, but just something to give you a little visual of. Now, when it comes to knives, we always need to worry about sharpness. And one of the tests I've always used is, can it shave your arm hair? And I've heard a lot of people say, well, D2 steel, you can't get it razor sharp. I can get it to the point where it can shave a spot of hair. That's how, when I was going through my training, that's one of the ways we tested to see how sharp a knife was. Either it was sharp enough to shave with, or sharp enough to cut the item or the thing that I needed it to cut. And both knives did it well. I've sharpened the Adamas quite a bit, but coming right out of the box, the Freek was surprisingly sharp. I was actually surprised how well that blade was already sharpened. And as I stated though, also stropped a little bit. After I took it out to the field, I didn't even bother sharpening it. I actually just stropped it again, and it's still holding up its retention very well, especially after using it for 6 days doing multiple tasks, like I stated a little bit earlier. But here you can see I got some 550. This is some of the stuff I work with constantly, and I'm always cutting or building with, and I needed my tools to basically help me cut through that as easily as possible. Little saying, I think everybody knows it, but a sharp knife is a safe knife. If you have a dull knife, that can definitely be an issue. And then just looking at the retention and the ease of sharpening on both knives, fairly good. Like I said, the Freek has held up really well. The Adamas has held up really well. But I noticed over a period of time, especially the Adamas, it doesn't stay razor sharp, but it's pretty burly. It still works really good. Well, that's it, guys. Thanks for your time. Let me know if this review helped you guys at all. If you get a chance, go ahead and check out the Freek.